Thank you everyone for joining us here at Confectionery Live. Today I have the utmost pleasure of being joined by Dr. Sandra Link, the product manager at Makat Candy Technology, a subsidiary of Syntagon. Thank you so much, Sandra, for being here with me today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Could you start us off by just sort of outlining what your role is at Makat Candy Technology and what it entails?
Mm-hmm. I'm the product manager at Makat, so responsible for the whole portfolio that we are delivering from kitchen, depositing, finishing technology. And in this role, I deal a lot with market requirements, with end products, with our customers' needs, as well as innovation and further development of our equipment.
So we're here to talk all about the nutraceutical candy market, which is obviously quite an exciting one, as we're witnessing it continue to grow in the confectionery industry. In your opinion, what is driving this growth, and sort of how do you see the market developing in the future?
First of all, the gummies are an attractive form of oral dosage, so it's much easier to take it as a pill. You don't need water. Gummies are connected to positive emotions as well. Then you have the consumers that are striving more and more concerning health and beauty benefits that they are searching. They have less time, so they like to take nutraceuticals to have all these benefits with that. And I think they are more and more open and curious about new products, about new ingredients, about new benefits that they give. And then you have, on the other hand, the innovative gummy and nutraceutical manufacturers that come over with all new ideas, new applications, new ingredients that are driving this trend. And the product life cycle is becoming faster and faster. So you see a lot of startups as well that are realizing new product ideas. It is easier nowadays to get close to the consumer, to have concerning marketing and selling new products and new ideas, much easier than it was in former times, I would say.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think there's obviously a lot of conversation around perhaps partly the younger generation being more experimental in the formats they look for in the confectionery industry. What are some of the interesting formats you've seen for gummies and jellies in the nutraceutical market?
Well, I think quite often you see like pectin products with in simple shapes, like a dome shape. And the more important is the application itself. So something that is good for immune or energy support, for sleep support, for hair, skin, nails. I think there's not really a limit. And consequently also about the range of ingredients that is quite huge in this field.
I just wanted to touch on this point you're making about what we're starting to see as the health conscious consumer. Would you say that the approach towards health and well-being in what people eat has shifted from being reactive to preventative, in that people are taking these gummies and jellies to improve their health without necessarily being unwell?
Yes, I would say.
Okay.
It's awesome.
And what are some of the functional ingredients that you're seeing these nutraceuticals being fortified with? And, importantly, from the perspective of the manufacturer making them, how is it affecting the rheology of the candy?
So just to name a few examples, you see a lot of multivitamins, calcium, omega-3, melatonin, to name just like a few examples. And it's always depending on how the ingredients are coming. So if it's a liquid ingredient or a powder. And so it could happen that they tend to bind water, so that they are increasing the viscosity of the gummies and jellies, which brings challenges in depositing, for example, and especially in depositing with a high accuracy. So that could, it has to be taken into account when you are thinking about the production technology, for example. Or another example that you have to take in mind is if you have an acided ingredient, then it is changing the pH value. So it is nothing that you cannot handle, but you have to take it into account when you are thinking about the recipe, that it is affecting the pH value, and also then later on the production process. And it depends on what time of the production process you are adding the ingredient.
Would you say then manufacturers need to be aware that there's maybe some more trial and error involved in producing nutraceutical candies?
I think it is a combination about the know-how that you have, the experience that you get after a certain time, when you have the experience with this special ingredients. And of course, then you also make trials. So you have, for example, in an application technology center where you can test the recipe, test the production process to ensure that you have a stable production process at the end. I think that is something where also the machine builders can support, because it's a combination about the end product, which is like the expertise of the customers, and then the machines, and everything has to work good together.
So you would say a pretty common approach for a manufacturer maybe bringing new product to market is to test it on a smaller scale in a lab?
Yeah, to ensure that the production process that you're deciding is really working as you expected before.
But I can imagine it's quite challenging, Sandra, because earlier you discussed or you mentioned that the market is moving quite quickly at there are always new products coming out. So it must be quite challenging from the perspective of a manufacturer who's perhaps not produced nutraceutical candies before or is interested in it to try to keep pace of that innovation.
I think it is, it is a challenge, of course, but it is only about being flexible to see what is bringing the future, and then to set the production that you need for it. So it's really an individual situation from producer to producer.
So could you talk through some of perhaps the processing steps that are especially important when processing these sensitive functional ingredients in nutraceutical candies?
So I think the aim is always to ensure the right supplement content per single piece, because compared to confectionery products, you're selling more like single pieces, and you have a special recommendation how many pieces per day the consumer should consume, instead of confectionery where you have like big bag of gummies and you're just eating it in front of the television or wherever. And then you have to ensure the right dosage in every single piece. So it starts really at the beginning of the process in the kitchen to have a high receipt accuracy to ensure that you have exactly the ingredients in the amount that you're expected. Then, of course, a special care when when dosing the nutraceuticals itself, so the ingredients. You have to make sure that you have not that much losses of ingredients, and that at the end you have still the amount of ingredients that you claim. Then it is going further to the depositing process with a high accuracy. So if you have exactly the product weight that you expected, you have also the amount of supplement inside. And then it's also about the cooling process, because there as well, you quite often have heat sensitive ingredients. And so it's important to have a special look at also the cooling process at the end to have the heat treatment as short as possible.
So definitely, it's a process which needs to be quite stringent in its quality control. What are some common challenges or bottlenecks you've seen when manufacturers are processing nutraceuticals?
I think it is that you are facing in first of all higher requirements concerning the accuracy and concerning also the heat sensitive ingredients, as I said, to minimize the losses, to choose the right dosage at the end. So in case that you have losses, because if you have something that is not heat stable, you always overdose a bit the ingredient, but really to choose the right amount to have it later on in the final product. And also it is about to have, it is even more important to have a running production, because you don't want to have any stops. You don't want to have your gummy mass to rest somewhere, because then as well you have like more losses, etc. And you really want to have a smooth and running production. So also the interfaces between every single process step is even more important.
So I could imagine having automated and digitized technologies is becoming really important in this sector to have that smooth running process, as you said.
Yes, also to monitor what you are doing in the production process, of course.
And hygiene, of course, is really important when producing these kinds of candies. How can manufacturers ensure how can they ensure high hygiene standards in processing?
I think it is quite important to have like easy cleaning, the hygienic design that we always strive for, but also to have routines, when to clean, how to clean, so all the rules around it. And then you can also take care to have a closed production process to really minimize any influence from the outside.
And we've seen starchless depositing technologies really come into the fore. What do you say are the main advantages, and why do they suit this kind of production so well?
I think the first thing that everybody is thinking about is to get rid of the starch, because who is already producing gummies knows that the starch is bringing a lot of challenges concerning the process itself, about cleaning, etc. So that is, of course, big advantage that you have when you are not producing with starch. You have shorter production times that you can realize, because you're using already the end dry substance in the product. You have reduced footprint, you have less cleaning effort because you have no starch. You do not need the whole starch handling that you have for the mobile lines. But of course, you have the limitations that you have a reduced flexibility compared to a mobile line concerning shapes, concerning product textures, gelling agents. So it is not that is everything is easier. But for the nutraceutical industry, that is not something that is a negative point, because the product itself is not about joy and just like consuming a lot of products. You're consuming single pieces, and the ingredients is much more important than the shape of the products.
So do you see maybe starchless depositing technologies being really popular in the nutraceutical industry, but do you think maybe as well starch depositing will still have its place in the wider confectionery or candy production area?
Yes, for sure. Because the mobile lines, they have a flexibility that is really, especially in the confectionery industry, that is really important and is a high benefit. That you cannot, nowadays, you cannot substitute by starchless depositing. So I think both technologies have their benefits and their limitations. And it's just very important to understand the use case and to understand the products that you want to manufacture, and then to choose the technology that is the best for you. And if you are producing nutraceutical gummies, of course, the starchless depositing has a high benefit.
So I can imagine automated and digitized technologies being really well suited to nutraceutical processing. How do you see automation benefiting the production?
It can support the high availability of the line. If you have process parameters and you have certain deviations of the process parameters, you could get to know them quite fast. So as early as you get to know the deviations, you can react and can troubleshoot to really avoid any machine stops and to ensure the availability of the line, which is quite important. So you have empty mold controls. You can just monitor parameters such as cooling parameters or depositing parameters to really ensure that you have a high machine availability, which is even more important for nutraceutical applications.
So a number of advantages, really. And you mentioned as well that the processing can be a faster process. Could you please provide an overview of what the process entails?
Yeah. So basically, from the kitchen to the depositing, the product finishing, and then when it's ready to get packaged, is done in less than 1 hour. So you do not need several days for drying the jellies, but you can do it everything in line. So you start with the gelling agent preparation, then you are dosing and mixing all the ingredients, and then you start to dissolve the gummy worms. And there it is important to really have a high end dry substance that you get. So you have special challenges for cooking process. When the base mass is being produced, then you are adding the supplement. And quite often, depending on the way how the supplement is coming as a powder or liquid, sometimes you have a preparation for the supplement as well. And we tend to add the supplement as late as possible in the process, especially when you talk about the heat-sensitive ingredients that we talked earlier about. Then you have the depositing itself. So the depositing is done into molds, in polycarbonate molds mainly. And to ensure better demolding at the end, you have to spray and release agent before in mold, and you're depositing into it. And then it is important to quickly cool down the candy mass, as earlier mentioned, especially in the case of heat-sensitive ingredients. And then you have a cooling process, which is, of course, depending on the product size, the gelling agent, but is starting like perhaps 20 minutes that you're cooling it down. And then it's ready to get demolded. After demolding, you have also the product finishing process to have, like, for example, a shiny surface of the product. And then it's quite ready to get packaged at the end. And the molds that are being demolded, they are going back in the line. And, depending on the process that you are going with, but in the case of a closed loop process, they are going to the beginning of the process. They're being checked if they are empty, and then you can start from the beginning to spray them and to deposit it.
Thank you for providing that overview. It sounds like a very interesting process.